The shorts are not way up to look like it would.
Yeah, so nobody gets the...
Yeah, like maybe
No, don't give anybody a show, Kenneth.
Yeah.
I know you got good gams and all.
People will start zooming in on the short.
I don't know. Maybe some people might like the gams a little more. Might go, hey, I like these short shorts.
Now I'm gonna send him money. Maybe next time we get even shorter shorts.
Yeah, we'll get.
Welcome to my OnlyFans. OnlyFans Ukraine.
Where all benefits go to the Ukrainians.
That's right.
Taking one for the team.
Josef said to me in the beginning when we started that he wanted to. He heard about some orphanages in the Mukachevo region in Ukraine, and some of the children he had learned had come from where the fighting was. They've been relocated, and so a number of children have been relocated from much more violent areas during the war. Some of the children, of course, weren't legitimately orphans, but have been taken out of their families' care because their families were not functional enough to, like everywhere, children have, some children come from pretty healthy families and other children not so much. But Josef felt a strong affinity for the children under those circumstances because he had a really difficult childhood growing up. And one of the things he said is that children particularly remember if they have a highlight in their life, something particularly good happens or a special day. And so he understood what a special day was. And maybe when he was a child, it was being at the side of the road and some Austrian tourists were driving through and they would throw some candy out of the window or some Austrian shillings, which he saved up as a child. And those were very special times. Or the time we were in Romania and we were in a shop like an Aldi here, and you have the cart, you have to put a coin in to get the cart detached from the cart rack. And when we were leaving the shop, this little boy, maybe about 5, not older than 5, walked up to us and offered to push our cart back so he'd get the coin. And when he looked into the cart, we were buying a bunch of Christmas stuff. This is pre-Ukraine. Christmas stuff like chocolates and things like this to bring home for our own Christmas that was coming up. And it happened that the little boy's eyes widened when he saw all these things he could only dream of when he was in the store that he could never have. And it seemed awful that this little boy was looking into this cart and seeing what was impossible for him. And I said to Josef, I won't feel good about bringing all this home. So I said to the child he could pick whatever he wanted from the cart. And he chose the little plush animal with some chocolates that came with it. And he wandered. About that time, one of the people from the shop told him to shift along, not before he had his chocolates, a little plush animal. And we saw him walking away down the railroad track. Normally I'd be really concerned with a railroad track and a 5-year-old, but he was pretty savvy. And we observed that he was scoffing down all the chocolate before he got home, because it's very likely as soon as he got home, some older sibling would have taken whatever he hadn't consumed away from him. But those are those little simple moments of joy that we were able to translate, not with just one little child who wanted to push a cart in for the money, but with 70 children.
And is this something you guys also want to do, not just with the orphanage, but with some of these other places you plan on going to?
Yeah, whether they're 5 or 12 or 75. Everybody could use a little bit of joy. A friend said to us early on, a Ukrainian friend, your money is not that significant. There's billions coming in, and nationwide, and it's mostly a lot for weapons and stuff. But the money we bring, which will afford some pizza or some teas or some things for someone's kitchen, people who are internally displaced and living in a community setting who could use a little help. Those things are nice, and we could just drop them off and leave them and have no personal connection with anyone. But instead, we bring them, we walk in. Sometimes you meet someone or a group of people at first, you can be really shy, and you're feeling out the room, and you don't know how you're going to be accepted or if they think you're just sort of transient passing through. But that was the way it was with one group of people who were displaced. First time I walked in, I looked about the room, I felt unequal to the people in the room, and within a short period of time, they enjoyed the pizza we brought, and then before we left, they invited us back to dinner the next day. About 40 people invited us back to dinner, and they cooked, I think, Joseph thought, all their best food. And you know, there was a point where they were giving materially about as much, if not more, than what we gave them. And that brings us to the realization it's not about the material possessions, but it's about the human connection. And they've had their homes taken from them. They've had their lives and their land and their jobs and their schedules taken from them. They've been shifted to a city many miles away from the life they knew. And the one thing they didn't lose was their ability to give hospitality and their ability to draw someone in. And so that human connection showed me that they were not a fragile group of people, but they were just as proud as they ever were when they had their own homes and lives and work, and they were just doing it somewhere else. And so for a little time they had some happiness, forgot about their pain, got to host 2 strange Americans visiting, and after we ate all their best food, Joseph said, we ate all their best food, you know. We went to the store and we bought, was it 50 or 100 kilos or
50 kilos, about almost 100. Yeah, about 100 pounds.
About 100 pounds of chicken wings and other things for them. All that they had cooked for us, we probably gave a much greater amount back for their freezer space since we ate all their food. But we continued to visit this group of people, and there's a woman there, quite elderly, named Babalita, Grandmother Lita, and she just, we can't go to that area without visiting Babalita. She's just wonderful, and she makes me eat everything that she makes.
So you gain weight every time you go there?
Every single time. Every single time. And they say, her daughter says, Kenneth, her daughter's my age, about 50. She says, Kenneth, every time my mother offers you food, you say yes to everything she offers you. I says, I know better than to say no to her soup or her bread or her cakes or her desserts. Anything. I just say yes because I know it makes her so happy.
So what are some of the other things aside from maybe ice cream parties? I'm going to guess because you guys are going to be there in June, so it'll be nice and warm. Or pizza parties again. What are some of the other things you guys do?
Dogs.
Dogs? Visit dogs?
Dogs.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people had abandoned pets because an example is a man who had 13 cats, and when he was evacuated from near the front lines, he was allowed to bring 1 cat with him.
Mm-hmm.
So that's 12 cats. They can fend for themselves largely, but dogs not so much. They can't always be brought over the border, and so there's been many, many homeless dogs. And they're not the dogs that people always want. People want the small little toy dogs. These are bigger and medium-sized dogs. And so we support one particular shelter that houses over 100 of them. And they're working on getting them adopted. But in the meantime, they keep them alive and fed and off the street. And another woman who does similar work with dogs and also
Okay.
cats so she found one dog that was left in a dumpster, and she saved that dog. And Joseph actually worked in helping with one particular cat that was sadly injured, had been treated really bad by a person. And the cat did very well for a while, but succumbed to its injuries.
So, is there ways how people could donate to you guys or assist before you leave, or even possibly while you're there?
Yeah. Often people ask about giving us clothing or shoes or material goods, and truthfully, it is cheaper to purchase things like that there than to ship it over or bring it over in a suitcase. Medical supplies are great, but money goes a long way to buy the supplies. It's not that Ukraine doesn't have medical supplies necessarily, or clothing or shoes or boots for a soldier. It's that it's a matter of getting those items into people's hands when they already can't afford to have them. So we go over with cash, and we're able to purchase the very best and make sure that we give it to the people who need it the most. We don't have someone else generally distributing things for us. People would know where to put it, but if we see a need, we try to fill that need, whether it's some kitchen supplies or a clothes washer for some people, soldiers.
And that is part of what this is, so you can spend time with people and make sure that you find out what they need and put money to use.
That's right. Yeah, we're just very direct. What do you need that we can provide? We were at a school, and we said, can you need help? Do you need help with outfitting this shelter for all the students? And I said, how much would it cost to do that work? Thinking we wouldn't be able to touch it financially. And actually, it was attainable. And so we paid for that, paint and foam flooring and stuff. They outfitted the school, the shelter, improved it, and the following June, we were there, and we learned that this school in Kyiv, with the shelter work we had paid for, was one of 3 schools that was certified to give finals to the students in the city, because it met 3 criteria that were mandatory, and one of them was the shelter that we had improved. And that was really astonishing to think what we thought was a fairly modest contribution of about $1,000 suddenly meant that hundreds of students could take part in final exams and have a safe shelter to run to if was required. And only 3 schools in all of Kyiv met that criteria. And we did that with a donation of $1,000. We followed the progress of the work, saw the pictures of the teachers. It's not unusual for teachers to throw in extra work in the basement, in the shelter, painting. And we went back and we saw the shelter a year later completely transformed.
And are you guys gonna aim to do anything like that while you're there?
We don't need to do, I don't think we'll be called upon to do any shelter work this time, but while we're there, we are going to support a large group of volunteers in Kolomia. I have trouble pronouncing some of the names in my American accent. And the People's House is this very large building with a theater in it and different rooms. They collect clothing and food and other stuff. So, and they support some other groups of people, like some people with Down syndrome and mental illness, and also there's a few orphanages. So we're going to check out some of the orphanages in that area, and we may bring some ice cream for some of those highlights. And each visit involves speaking to a lot of individual people. Sometimes it involves often handshaking, but also hugs. And
And that makes a
well,
big difference.
oh, it makes a big difference.
Yeah.
I don't go around inflicting hugs on people. I'm not very huggy in general. I'm considered anti-hug. But when a child comes over to you, or a special adult comes over to you and gives you a hug, you can't, I want to be distant, but I can't be. Because if someone's initiating a hug, it's because they see something in you they want to hold on to. And we try to be good visitors. We try to, we're always respectful and kind, and you never know what you're called upon to do. At one of the orphanages on a previous trip, we met some missionaries. They were supported by a group called Orphans Promise, and they had sent some missionaries there. And the missionary said to me, "Are you a missionary?" And I went, "Oh, no, I'm not." "Well, wait a minute. I'm a member of my Quaker meeting, and they sent me with their blessing. I guess I'm a missionary light, like diet soda, only partly a missionary." I wanted to think that maybe I could be in a very, very light, casual way, but without preaching anything particular, just doing. And so I kind of smiled about that, left the man named Noah a little bit confused, and we went on our way. And later that day, we went to visit a large group of friends, and they really are friends. And my favorite, Babalita, of favorites, she wasn't feeling well. She apologized, but she was stuck in bed, and she was sick. But she said to the others, "When Kenneth gets here, ask him to come to my room." So I was invited, and I went with my interpreter. And this dear friend was laying in her bed. She's an elderly woman, and she was crying and praying with a prayer card. And, I didn't think too hard about what to do. I greeted her. She smiled a little bit. And after a little while, I said to her, "I see that you were praying." And it was translated. She showed me, she says, "Yes, I was. I'm very afraid. I don't know if I'm going to be okay." And I said to her, "Can I pray with you?" And this is not usual for me to go offer to pray with people, but at that moment, I think that's what I saw that she needed, someone to spend that time with her in that way. So I dug deep into my Catholic school upbringing and found the Catholic prayers I could still remember. Point is, she prayed out loud, and I held her hand, and I prayed out loud. And at one point, our interpreter took a picture of me holding her hand. And when I left that night, I thought to myself that you'll never know what you're called to do. And that day I was called, I guess, to be a missionary light. And I'm happy to tell you that Babalita has fully recovered, and last I heard is doing well. But those are those special moments or the woman who's a cafeteria worker who I'm meeting for the first time, and she informs me in the conversation that her son was killed in 2018 in the war, and I really felt unequal to the moment. If I had said something like, "Gee, I'm sorry," or "my condolences," I think that would have been like a nasty punctuation at the end of a sentence, almost asking her to move on to a new subject. And I really, in that moment, thought, "Oh my goodness, this could break me," and I don't know what to do. So I remember I have someone I go to church with who often in awkward moments will stare even more awkwardly. And I thought to myself, "Don't talk, Ken. Don't say anything. don't try to make it okay, because none of it is okay. And I just looked into her eyes for, I don't know, however long, but I resolved to not say a thing to her until she was done, truly speaking. And so she got to speak about her son for a few more minutes, and it was an exercise in really listening to someone. The thing is that you don't always have to have something to say, but you have to be there with the person. And that's what we're doing. We're going to Ukraine, two fairly average people with a little bit of money and a message of just being there. Like someone said, why did you come here, leave your lives behind, and put yourself at danger just for us? And then we never really have to answer that question, because people usually answer it for us. And so that's what we're doing. And you could say, well, we could go when the war is over, but when the war is over is not when people need us. People need something now. We're very often also the first Americans that people have ever met in their lives. And so in many ways we feel like ambassadors for the country and the hopefulness that is the American ideal. Americans have this immense sense of hope that we can accomplish anything. And I think we bring a little bit about that. And they temper us with the realities of war, but they also want to believe they can accomplish anything. So I hope in years to come there'll be some children who had grown up in the orphanage who will remember two Americans who came and visited and brought pizza and ice cream and took them out for a large group for a day outing. And they're going to say, I don't remember their names. They'll never remember our names, but they'll remember that two Americans came and were kind. And I'm happy to be anonymous in that way. We represent a hopefulness, an American ideal, that things can be better, that will make it better. And so that's how I want to be remembered, as one of the two nameless men who visited Ukraine and did good.
Thank you, gentlemen.